Hello, America. Welcome. It is me, your host, Eric Erickson, here across America this day after the 4th. I still have all my fingers and all my toes. We shot so many fireworks. We went back to the fireworks stand at 9:30 last night and got bigger stuff because we intended to celebrate the 4th of July as John Adams intended for Americans to celebrate the 4th of July. I hope you had a great one. Now, listen, we are on limited staffing here today, so we have no call screener today. However, we'll do what we did last week when this happened. In lieu of an open line Friday, we'll have an open mic Friday. If you've got a voice memo app on your phone, you can email the voice memo to me, contact@ewerickson.com. Contact@ewerickson.com. Philip will review them. Just give me your name, where you're calling from, and what you want to say. And since it's a Friday, we'll be a little loose with them, assuming you guys are up for it. I'll remind you throughout the show. Right now, I got to give you the update. I wasn't going to start with this, but there's been so much. We got to start with this. Believe it or not, the day after the 4th of July, July 5th, Joe Biden is still the president of the United States and still the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. As I told you last week, don't expect him to go anywhere. However, as I told you on Wednesday, Democrats increasingly realize Joe Biden has got to go for them to win in November. And Democrats are increasingly realizing that Joe Biden has no intention of leaving the race. So they are setting conditions. Donors are beginning to withhold money, and they're trying to assess the lay of the land. So here's where we are today. And it is important for me to timestamp it. I'm talking to people right now at 12:08 p.m. Eastern Time on July 5th, 2024. Joe Biden is sitting down about now with George Stephanopoulos to do a pre-taped interview on ABC News that they're going to have to be very careful about editing, because any editing is going to suggest ABC is trying to protect Joe Biden. I actually believe George Stephanopoulos is trying to land the fatal blow. George Stephanopoulos is trying to euthanize Joe Biden, to push him very hard. A series of stories are starting to come out, and you know what this reminds me of? Harvey Weinstein. Remember Harvey Weinstein caught up in the Me Too scandal, too big to fail, the head of Miramax, won Academy Awards repeatedly for his films. The most powerful man in Hollywood, who's now in jail. During the Me Too movement, several women came out and they claimed that Harvey Weinstein had sexually assaulted them, raped them, did awful things to them, and that there were others. There were others. Weinstein denied it. Drip, 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 drip. More came. And then more came. And then more came. Pretty soon, Harvey Weinstein found himself indicted and out of a job, and everyone who was Harvey Weinstein's friend pretended they did not know him. It was the drip. It was the cavalcade. A few women came forward, and then suddenly a credible woman comes forward, and then suddenly he's out the door, and now he's in jail. Ironically, he was advised by Anita Dunn. Who is Anita Dunn? Joe Biden's top advisor in the White House. It now turns out, reporters are now reporting that for at least 2 years, there have been problems with Joe Biden and that people saw it. A senator has remarked that he doesn't want to be known, wants to be anonymous. A senator of the United States of America has come forward and said that, yes, Joe Biden has clearly for some time been out to lunch, has clearly for some time not been quite right in his mind. For some time, Joe Biden has seemed out of it, confused. One former Biden aide told Axios Annie, Ashley, and Anthony created a protective bubble around POTUS. He's staffed so closely, he's lost all independence. He relies on staff to nudge him with reminders of who he's meeting, including former staffers and advisors who Biden should easily remember without a reminder from Annie. What? I don't know who Annie, Ashley, and Anthony are, but Joe Biden is protected by them, and staffers have known it the whole time, and they're only now coming forward saying it. By the way, your vote for Joe Biden means you support democracy while also meaning you support an unelected cabal of people who you don't know running the government because the president is unfit. Really makes you really support democracy, doesn't it? Olivia Nuzzi is out with a piece from New York Magazine. She says in January she was hearing from close Biden friends that he no longer remembered them, and that others working around him at the White House have been shocked to encounter a president so cloistered, so protected, so in a bubble that when staff at the White House meet him who haven't seen him in some time, he doesn't remember him. He loses his train of thought. And I have to tell you, I was critical of Olivia Nuzzi for mentioning this about these conversations she's had with people in January, February, March, all of them. And she replied to me very diplomatically, very politely, very defensively, saying, I would have reported this, but they were all off the record conversations and I had to respect it. Only after the debate did they come forward and say, you know what, you might as well get this out there now. We got to see if we can push him out. So all of these people are admitting they knew he was in mental decline and they covered it up. And reporters, some of them were bound by the agreements they made with people not to report. They didn't say anything. That's a heck of a thing. Y'all, this is like the Harvey Weinstein situation. Harvey Weinstein was invulnerable and powerful. And then he wasn't. And then he wasn't. It's kind of remarkable, actually. What we're seeing in real time is a dam bursting. And Jill Biden, the first lady, it's like, what's the story of the kid who put their finger in the dike in the Netherlands? No, not that. Come on. You know, the dam in the Netherlands, they call them dikes there. We're not, no, stop it. There's a Robin Williams joke there from Good Morning Vietnam. The dikes don't wear comfortable shoes. And suddenly, in this case, Jill Biden is the one trying to plug the hole and keep the water from coming forward, and she can't stop it. The dam is beginning to crack. And part of the issue here is that Joe Biden still really believes that he's not as bad as he is, and that he can still move forward, and that he can still withstand the pressure to go. Here's Lisa Desjardins on PBS. Or not, because I can't actually get her audio going at the moment, which is fine. She essentially is telling PBS reporters that behind the scenes, there is lots and lots of outrage by the Democrats about what they're seeing, and that many of these Democrats have for a long time just grinned and bore it and thought, you know, we have to do this. And now it turns out that's not the case at all. Now it turns out that the Democrats are deeply outraged at the fact that the Biden team has been covering up. And by the way, I do have to say, there are a lot of reporters who seem to be in on it. Peter Baker at the New York Times, he and his wife are both progressives. He will hump Joe Biden's leg with the best of them, and he's got a piece out today in the New York Times essentially saying Joe Biden may have dementia, but at least we're thinking of replacing him, unlike you all for Republicans with a convicted felon, and you won't replace him. We're still better than you. Peter Baker has been photographed multiple times with the President of the United States. He probably knew. Now, it's speculation on my part, but when you have that much interaction, you're one of the president's favorite reporters out there, you probably do suspect that there's something not right, and you've kept your mouth shut. Where will the consequences be? Where will this fall? Because what you have right now is much of the media out there claiming, well, we had no idea. And to the extent we knew, we weren't allowed to report it. Where's the accountability? So I said in my morning email, which you can get if you text data to 33777, you can subscribe. You should. The scandal is actually bigger than Joe Biden. The media has deflected on the number of illegal aliens murdering Americans. The media has given the Biden team a pass on saying inflation was transitory. The media has talked up the economy, claimed it's not actually as bad as it is, when actually for the middle class and the poor it actually is. The media has downplayed so much that this administration has done that's not good. Oversold minor things as if they were the greatest thing ever. The media has been complicit in this, and there will not be accountability. They're already defending themselves, saying, oh, of course we reported on this. How dare you suggest we didn't? All they can do is gaslight us. But holy moly, what we are seeing is they all knew. All of them knew. The Democrats knew. The reporters knew. Just like Harvey Weinstein. This is the Democrats' Harvey Weinstein moment. Instead of covering up for a sexual predator, they've covered up for a dementia-addled old man who doesn't know where he is or who his friends are or what he's doing. And he's put in charge of the Defense Department, a Secretary of Defense who disappears. We were promised adults. What we weren't promised were geriatric, dementia-addled senior citizens to be in charge. When they said the adults would be in charge, we didn't realize they meant the ones who are at end of life. Even Olivia Nessie in her New Yorker magazine piece today talks about how the president, when she saw him in January, he looked half dead. People were joking. Staffers were joking that he was 40% dead that day or something like that, that he was cold. His eyes looked like there was nothing on behind them. It comes in waves. And there are two larger issues here now. There are two larger, bigger issues. If the president of the United States is not fit to stand for re-election, how is he then fit to continue governing till January of next year? And also, Kamala Harris has been one of the enablers and one of the defenders of Joe Biden, claiming that everything is hunky-dory and just fine. Where's the accountability for Kamala Harris in this? If the Democrats do ditch Biden, she is their only choice. Democratic donors are becoming increasingly agitated and saying they want Harris. Joe Biden says he's going to go to NATO, he's going to go to the conference, and he's going to prove he's fit for office. He's going to sit with George Stephanopoulos. The whole nation can watch it at 8 p.m. tonight. This is like Harvey Weinstein. He was inevitable, unbeatable. And then everyone started coming forward saying everybody knew all along. And the reason Harvey Weinstein is in jail now is not because of what he did. It's because it became too inconvenient for too many people to pretend they had no idea. And Harvey Weinstein, suddenly, the indispensable man, became very dispensable. The same will happen for Joe Biden now, it seems. As the floodgates have opened, the dam has burst, the water is pouring out, and he's becoming too inconvenient because all the people who've told us, don't believe your eyes, now they've got to protect themselves, and Joe Biden has become very dispensable. These people have to protect their reputations, which means Joe Biden probably does have to go away at this point. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. By the way, the problem for Joe Biden is, and I want to take this one at face value here. For the sake of argument, and again, I emphasize for the sake of argument, let's presume Joe Biden sometimes does get tongue-tied. And so his brain and his mouth move at different speeds, and he says things that he doesn't mean but are easily explainable, like this on a interview yesterday morning on a black radio network.
By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman, served with a black president. I'm proud of the role of the first black woman in the Supreme Court. There's just so much that we can do because together there's nothing. Look, this is the United States of America.
So he's proud to be the first black vice president of the United States. Now, he's proud to have appointed the first black president of the United States and to have been the first vice president serving under the first black president of the United States. It's really clear that that's the sort of thing Joe Biden meant, but it's not what he said. And so these things become more self-reinforcing every single time Joe Biden speaks now. There's more and more of this every single time. It becomes more and more of a problem for Joe Biden that he trips over his own tongue and is at war with the English language. These problems matter. You may understand what he meant to say, but he did not say what he meant to say, and it just reinforces all the problems. All right. We got to move on. Before I do, I got to mention to you the BRICS and the problems with Russia, Brazil, India, China, South Africa, buying gold reserves up. This is why Swiss America wants to help you protect your hard-earned assets right now. Banks are collapsing. Interest rates are high. The economy seems to be slowing down again. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from a secret war on cash that's happening, you need to get Swiss America's free report. And the way you do this is you can call or text my name to 800-289-2646. Rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau, Swiss America can educate you on protecting your hard-earned assets now. And listen, importantly, it only takes about 15 minutes to read this report, and it's completely free. Just go to call or text my name to 800-289-2646. The All Out War on Cash, by the way, includes digital forms of currency. 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. Hello there. It is Eric Erickson here across the country. Listen, we are without a call screener today because it's the day after the 4th. Everybody's off. Couldn't find anybody. Charlie's on vacation. So the way we're doing it is if you email a voice memo to contact@ewerickson.com, you will be able to make it into the show. Philip is screening the audio messages. And here's one from Richard.
Hey, Eric. This is Alan from Gray, Georgia. I think that Biden's political career is over in 2024, either by choice or the party leaders are going to treat him like his Uncle Ambrose. However, if he does stay in the race and loses, Harris's political career will be over. But if he steps aside and she replaces him, what Democrat would be willing to risk their career playing suck-it fiddle to her?
Any of them, man. Listen, this is all about power. Everything we're seeing is about power. The Democrats don't want Trump back in. They want to control the power. And so they try to shut down a primary process and cover it up for Joe Biden. And they only are having these conversations now because the public has seen with their own eyes they've been being lied to by the Democrats. It's all about control of power. And so naturally, any of these people would want to side with Kamala Harris, thinking that, if she loses, it's all going to be forgotten. The blame will be on Joe Biden, not on Kamala Harris, and certainly not on them. They will have done what they needed to do to stick up for the country. And they'll go downhill from there for the Democrats. Yeah, any of them would. Now, the weird thing is, so there are the conspiracy theories on the right now that the Democrats are going to go with Hillary Clinton. That's not true. In fact, the Democrats have concluded, as I told you would be the case, that only Kamala Harris can get Joe Biden's $212 million war chest. Only Kamala Harris can get it. But, this raises all sorts of problems for Kamala Harris. I want to play you some audio. This is Kamala Harris. She sat down with, I believe it was Katie Couric in January of this year. Now, remember, Olivia Nuzzi at New York Magazine yesterday released a very lengthy story that said back in January, she had heard from multiple people in Biden world that Joe Biden couldn't remember the names of friends, was very distracted, was disoriented, did not seem himself, and had quote unquote dead eyes. This is Kamala Harris from January 24th of this year.
I want to get to the heart of what I think you're raising, which you've said is his age. So let's talk about that. I spend a lot of time with Joe Biden, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. And I can tell you, this is someone who is tireless in terms of working on behalf of the American people. To your point of knowing Joe Biden, he comes from a background and a place in his heart and soul where he cares so deeply about working people, about families.
Right. He's all fine and good. Alex Thompson, who has been covering this more rigorously than most, writing at Axios, has this to say.
Are being had among the people that would step up if Biden stepped aside.
Yeah, Kamala Harris is the clear front runner, and it's not clear who, if anybody, would actually challenge her for the nomination. But the thing is that she, we talked about credibility. She's going to have to, first of all, answer the fact that she's been one of the main public validators of his health. You remember after her report, she went out there and said he is with it. He is commanding everything in the room. She's going to have to sit down and answer tough questions. I mean, we talked about Joe Biden hasn't really been out there with reporters. Kamala Harris, besides that initial CNN and MSNBC interview right after the debate, she hasn't really been out there answering questions. And they're going to be, if Joe Biden drops out, the first week that she is out there is going to be critical. Because if there's any signs of chinks in the armor, there are many, as you just said, there are many people in the wings that are ready to pounce as soon as.
Yeah. I mean, look, the problem here is Kamala Harris engaged in the cover-up. She's also not a great candidate. The Democrats are already beginning to spin, she would be great. She'd be younger than Trump. She'd be a stunning contrast. Y'all, I want to tell you in all honesty, all of these people who are trying to tell you Kamala Harris will somehow rebound and be strong, they know that Kamala Harris is not a great candidate. And you know how I know they know Kamala Harris is not a great candidate? Because the Biden administration has largely put her in the witness protection program. If Kamala Harris were such a great candidate, the Biden administration would have been boosting her profile, and instead they've tried to keep her in the background because the more Kamala Harris exposes herself, the more Kamala Harris is revealed to be a weak candidate. Remember the staff rollover in both her Senate office and her vice presidential office. She can't keep staff. Her staff themselves say she's difficult to work with. Remember, the New York Times did an interview where the Kamala Harris team gave the New York Times the names of people who would say nice things about her, and those people declined to say nice things about Kamala Harris. That's how bad Kamala Harris is. They're trying to convince themselves that Kamala Harris is in some way a good candidate, and yet Donald Trump, like me, calls her cackles, and there's a good reason for that.
And now, Deep Thoughts by Kamala Harris. That was Deep Thoughts by Kamala Harris.
Yes, that's the problem. That is the problem for Kamala Harris. And I just don't think that the Democrats truly appreciate that Kamala Harris just isn't a very likable person. I mean, y'all, her office, I'm trying to see if I've got the right article here, and I don't know that I have, but her office gave the New York Times a list of people who they assured the New York Times would say nice things about Kamala Harris. And they didn't. They wouldn't. She's had massive staff turnover. In June 2021, Harris would compound her problems with the widely panned interview with Lester Holt, in which he repeatedly asked her why she's not been to the border. And I haven't been to Europe, Harris said, and I mean, I don't understand the point you're making. The Holt interview would publicly set the tone for Harris's first 2 years. The flood of criticism stung Harris personally, and she mused in private conversations about worrying she had let down Biden in the White House. Over the following year, she traveled less often. She mostly avoided further media interviews, preferring friendly settings like The View. Harris staff argued she had to carefully schedule her travel during this period because she often served as the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. With a 50-50 chamber. In private conversations, however, some Democrats close to Biden say they encouraged her to stay visible and that if Harris's decision alone to step back over the advice of her chief of staff and Biden's senior advisors, her public absence would not go unnoticed. The Democrats and their friends in the media are in the fetal position muttering, she's really a good candidate. She's really a good candidate. She's really a good candidate. The same people for 3.5 years have curled up in the fetal position saying, Joe Biden's just fine. Joe Biden's just fine. Joe Biden's just fine. Joe Biden's just fine. He's not fine and she's not a good candidate. It's just the reality. They can claim all they want that it's not the case. They can claim all they want that it's not the case. But the fact that Kamala Harris is criticized by the people that she herself says are good, it's not good. Here's, again, from the New York Times. Not everyone agrees with Kamala's supporters, including a number of Democrats who are granted anonymity to speak freely. A top Democratic consultant said that she has a little Ron DeSantis in her in terms of the disconnect between political talent and expectations. One major donor said there's an agreement among the party's heavy hitters that having Harris as vice president for Biden is not ideal, but there's a hope she can rise to the occasion. Sometimes the arguments against her feel more petty. A member of Harris's staff remarked on the amount of downtime the vice president schedules on trips, which includes an inordinate amount of time dedicated to hair care. Harris is largely absent from the post-Biden jockeying that is already taking place among prospective candidates and donors. One major donor told me, I've gotten invites from people like Whitmer and Booker, and even people like Buttigieg and Ro Khan are cultivating meetings and donors. It's radio silent from Kamala Harris. They really think they can stake their future on her. They really think they can do that. Now, here's the thing. This is the best they have. Only Kamala Harris can get the war chest. Only Kamala Harris can avoid an open convention, which they don't want. The media wants an open convention. Republicans want an open convention. The far left wants an open convention. The establishment of the Democratic Party does not want an open convention because, one, the money from Biden's war chest goes away, and two, it would be open to chaos. You can't brand Donald Trump the chaos candidate when the Democrats go into chaos in Chicago. So it's got to be Kamala Harris, and she's got to be careful with a running mate. Jonathan Martin of Politico, he's writing on Twitter that Roy Cooper of North Carolina, she and he served together as state's attorneys general. He's 70 years old. He's a steady hand in a swing state Biden needs. That Roy Cooper fits the bill for Kamala Harris. What's notable here is we're having these conversations now. Because a week ago yesterday, Joe Biden showed the world what you and I have known the whole time. He's not fit for office. But the problem is Kamala Harris isn't really that fit either. She could get elected as a woke diversity hire in California by its woke left voters. But really, does the rest of the nation want her? Polling shows young black men are drifting to the Republican Party. Young black men don't like Kamala Harris. She arrested a lot of their fathers and put them in jail in California over marijuana charges, and she now claims that it was never a big deal, all a joke, and bygones. This is not a candidate who's a strong candidate. But here's the thing. The same people who told you that Joe Biden was A-OK and everything was fine are the same people who are going to tell you Kamala Harris is the greatest candidate to ever live. Same ones. Now, none of this is true. None of this is true. But it's the best the Democrats have going for them right now. The media will lie for them. The media will protect them. And the media itself will do everything possible to cover for Kamala Harris in the same way they have covered for Joe Biden. Sorry, brain fog, and I'm not even an 81-year-old dementia-addled president. All right, we need to move on. Jim, what do we have next? Thank you. Old Glory Bank, my bank. Let me be effusive with praise. Actually, while I do this, I have to, because I want to talk to you about their mortgages. And the lawyers make me read a number when I talk about the mortgages. So they do VA conventional and FHA loans, and they've got competitive rates. By the way, so they do their own lending, and they've got quick closing times. So if you need a bank that does a loan, you're looking for a mortgage at a competitive rate, look to Old Glory Bank. They've really gotten into this. In addition to their no-fee checking and their no-fee savings, they can be your whole bank. I mean, they can do personal loans. They can do VA, conventional FHA mortgages for your home. In fact, if you refer someone to Old Glory Bank for a closing, you're going to get $250 in a John Rich autographed Old Glory cap. OldGloryBank.com is my bank. I love them. Y'all, I like this bank so much I bought shares in it. Just I'll make sure you understand that, because that's how much I believe in what the bank is doing. It's a conservative bank, owned by conservatives, started by conservatives, for conservatives. It's oldglorybank.com. You can get an account in less than 8 minutes. What sets them apart is they've arranged for themselves to be invested by conservatives, so the wokes can't buy up the bank and then push them to become some progressive icon. Oldglorybank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, NMLS number 834337. Terms and conditions apply. Greetings. This hour of the program is brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. They can help your business grow. If your business is buying a building or building a building or buying a franchise, reach out to them, firstlibertyga.com. Firstlibertyga.com. If you need an equipment loan, you need $50,000, you got to buy heavy equipment, you got to buy a big truck or something for your business, reach out to them. They make their lending decisions, and if you got great credit, they can typically move pretty fast. FirstLibertyGA.com. Now, I gotta move on to other stuff. We got lots to talk about still today. And remember, I will take your phone calls, except you have to send a voice memo to contact@ewerickson.com. I have several people who have emailed. Here is Robert. There are two issues here. The Democrat media are focused on Biden and the election, and can Democrats win with Biden, or who should run and win against Trump? Two, and the real critical issue only gets minor attention. Who's running the country now? Biden should not be at the helm of running the U.S. anymore. Our national security, safety, the economy, the border, all those other issues are at stake. Invoke the 25th Amendment and save America. We can't wait 6 months. They're not going to invoke the 25th Amendment. It's not going to happen. Vice President Harris has to do it, and she's not going to be the one to do it. She wants the nomination, throwing her boss overboard to grab his campaign cash. She's not going to launch a coup. It's not going to happen. What I do find remarkable is that members of the media who were so willing to engage in 25th Amendment talk after that Donald Trump walked slowly and slowly drank a glass of water, they have yet to bring up the 25th Amendment with Joe Biden. It's just another reminder of how biased the media itself is, not just the pundits, not just the commentators, but the actual anchors and reporters and their biases against the Republicans. The 25th Amendment is not going to happen, folks. It should happen, but it's not going to. What I find most remarkable are the number of people who are convinced that Barack Obama's team is running the country. It's not true. There are people on the right convinced Barack Obama is running the country through Joe Biden. The people who believe this are the people who don't really understand the goings on in Washington, and they hear it from friends and they believe it must be true. The reality is the Biden team and the Obama team hate each other's guts. My personal view is that it is clear Joe Biden is running things because everything is in disarray, chaos, a mess, and doesn't make sense and contradicts itself, and only a dementia-addled patient would give us those results. But in point of fact, it is Jill Biden and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's close group of advisors and chief of staff and all who are paring the decisions down. So at the end of the day, Joe Biden makes the decision, but it is a very close, tight-knit group of advisors who weed all of the decisions down to one or two that make it easy for Joe Biden to make the decision. And they can say he made the decision, but the weeding out of all the options down to two is from this close-knit group of advisors. That includes his wife and his convicted felon son. It's not Barack Obama's team, and anyone who tells you it's Barack Obama's team actually doesn't know anything about the dynamics between Obama and Biden and their teams, and is just saying it because they probably read it on the internet. It's not very thoughtful, and it's really not true.